Patrick Johnston,
Hi.
welcome. Yeah, no more slow starts, hey? Before we get to Canucks this week, I do want to thank our sponsor, Paragon Roofing. You can visit them at paragonroofingbc.ca. They're a proud sponsor of our Canuck Report newsletter, all of our Canucks content. We appreciate their business. You know, home, residential, repairs, replacement, whatever you need. These are the guys to go to. You get everything all under one roof, just like those in Rogers Arena saw last night, Patrick. That was they almost blew the roof off the place. Um, it was obviously an emphasis. Like, we're going to deal with the whole week ahead for the Canucks, but
Right.
we're dealing with the one game we've had so far. Um, what are your thoughts on that kind of a game for the Canucks? Obviously, there's a ton of storylines to come out of it, but in particular, this was something that was on Rick Tocchet's mind about slow starts.
Yeah.
How did is that the true Canucks? Obviously, they're not going to blow the team out any team out 8-1 probably for the rest of the year, let alone the Oilers. But what precipitated that kind of performance last night for you?
Well, you want certainly the buzzword from Rick Tocchet has been preparation, right? Like you want to be ready, and the players have been echoing that. The players also obviously have talked about how badly the last two seasons have started, 2 seasons in a row that had bad starts that claimed coaches. I don't think there's any suggestion that if they're faltering mid-season, Rick Tocchet will be out the door. But they don't want to be faltering. They want to be in the playoff chase. They want to be in the position to say we have something to play for. You know, when the first time we really start saying whether a team has a chance or not at American Thanksgiving. But yeah, the standard start to the season where they've gone on this long road trip. This is an exceptionally long trip, 5 games, but 15 days essentially. Um, a couple times where they have 2 days off between games. Like this isn't so much a test of readiness as it will be a test of endurance. They seem ready, and the way they played on Wednesday night um, is the blueprint for what they want to be. They killed penalties well. They never really got overwhelmed. There were a couple moments, especially there was a shift certainly early in the first period where they did look overwhelmed defensively, but then they reset themselves. They never had those sort of 5 alarm chances that they've constantly bled against themselves last year. Thatcher Demko, again, part of the story being that last year he had such a poor start to the season, but the team was defending so poorly in front of him. It's almost a question of would it even have mattered given how much they were giving away. The point is that they were organized, they were disciplined, and they were playing two of the best players in the world. Now Edmonton obviously is missing Matthias Ekholm, who's their number one guy. Like, try to imagine the Canucks without Quinn Hughes. Ekholm isn't quite as good as Quinn Hughes, but he's pretty good. That when you're missing one of your top guys like that, that makes a difference. Even if you do have two of the best players in the world up front, but it was as prepared, as focused a performance as we've seen from this Canucks team in 3 or 4 seasons, really. And obviously the top players were great. JT Miller had one of the best two-way games he's ever put together in Vancouver. It is now the measuring stick for the rest of the season, no matter what the result was.
Can't obviously talk about that start, but with a lens of going forward, without talking about Brock Boeser. Obviously, we've seen lots of players, even some not very good players, score 4 or more goals in one game. But this is the guy who obviously had a pedigree, had a reputation as basically a goal scorer. So what does this say for you about Brock Boeser going forward? A guy who's been linked several times, many times, of leaving town. But in particular, the one goal where, whether you believe outside analysis or not, this idea that what made him such a star as a rookie, that quick release, rapid shots that just that you can't catch up to, seem to have disappeared. Was this just great circumstance, or do you think he's capable of getting back to that level as a goal scorer?
Oh, I mean, certainly the hat trick goal, which goes in off his foot that he was laughing about post game, that was circumstance. But the first goal was a classic Boeser goal. You think about that chance he had to score the fifth goal to win the score and win for someone. He actually groaned. I don't even know what the term is. He exulted I think I said post game, that was such a glorious chance. The fact that he was getting those chances, he had 8 shots on the night, was a statement about. It was as big a statement for him as anything could have been, for a player who obviously had a terrible first half of the season last year. I think was better down the stretch than people gave himself credit for, but also in the end finished essentially with a career low in goals. A player who maybe needed to sort of double down a little bit on his preparation. I don't think there was ever a question of him being ill prepared, but he definitely had to shift something. And he got focused in on really. It was an interesting exchange I had with him early on in training camp, basically saying that, he had said, "Oh, I changed how I work out," but what he changed to working out was essentially the stuff that they were already doing in Vancouver. So, whatever he was doing at home had not been necessarily aligning with, certainly not what the current strength and conditioning, the human performance department wants to see from him. And I asked Rick Tocchet, is he quicker? He said, yeah, I think he is. He looks sort of just smoother overall. He's always been a smarter player than I think people have given him credit for. But in the end, he needs to score goals. He came into the league hoping to be an elite sniper. Came into the league hoping to be a 30-goal scorer. He needs 26 now, sort of 1 every 3 games. I mean, that's not an impossible task. The question is, can he stay healthy? And that's never been a successful thing for him, other than, oddly enough, the COVID season. It was a big moment. It's a big moment for him. I jokingly said, "Are you going to score 5 on Saturday?" He sort of said, "Well, we'll see." But yeah, he knows. He showed. Like I said, this is the standard. This is the blueprint for this team, not the result, but the process. And he showed very well in terms of process against a very tough opponent. And obviously Saturday, people maybe won't have seen this by then, but on Saturday is a different measuring stick because they're on the road. They don't get the matchups. They're probably. I wouldn't be surprised if Rick Tocchet leans heavily on his top players more than usual because of the challenge in front of them, because of the challenge of taking on McDavid. And again, if this team's going to make the playoffs, they need to continue having performances, not just results, but performances like they were getting from the likes of Boeser and JT Miller and Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, and the list goes on.
What's a realistic ceiling for Boeser for goals?
Well, he's got to get to 30. I mean, that's to me that's been the talking point. He doesn't want to talk about it. He said it himself. No more public statements. He was so pumped up last season to get those 30 goals. He felt so good coming into the season, obviously coming off his father's death, feeling some release, but at the end of the season admitting that things had been harder than he'd expected. But he seems to have stepped into a new emotional state in that regard. There's a maturity there. He loves living in Vancouver. It was not a thrilling concept to him to ask last year to see if they could find a new team for him. His heart has always been here. This is the team that brought him to the NHL. They've done such great things for his family. They've given him the life he has in many ways, and this is where he wants to be. I think there's a real sort of personal angle here. There's personal retribution here that he's after. But yeah, 30 goals, and then 30 goals would be great for this team from any player, but from him it would have extra special meaning, I think.
26 goals in the next 81 games. We'll see if he can do it. Last topic here before we go. Well, we'll kick around some quick fire stuff at the end, but I just wanted you to address a little bit about Elias Pettersson. Obviously, 4 points, the slow motion hit that we've all seen over and over again. It's so funny. You may have said this, we all watch a game now on 2 screens and kind of following along all the different comments on Twitter. Or X or wherever else you happen to be following.
Blue Sky.
Yeah, wherever else the province.com, you're following on the game file there in the comments underneath, which we want your comments. Patrick's doing a weekly mailbag. Please send him your comments if you need them or if you have something you'd like him to answer. But anyway, someone said last night that before you used to fear when you saw someone bearing down on Pettersson that he would literally crumble, and now it's the other people bouncing off him. That's not like he's become a 240-pound linebacker, but he's certainly stronger, certainly a much more mature body type, still an elite athlete and a hockey player. But how much do you think that strength, which I think is mental as much as physical, is altering his game?
There is no doubt that this is a man. This is a man who has his man's strength. You can just see him now. Like he's had, this is season 6 as an NHLer. Like he has prepared himself physically every year in impressive ways, and it's adding up now. Like this is a guy that's strong. He's thick. He's a big guy. He can use his body to impose himself. He's not a power forward, but he's not a player. I don't think he was ever a player who was going to get dominated just because he was so skilled. But he's not. When he came in, he was a kid, and now he's not. And he is in his physical prime. And yeah, that hit was such a good example of a player who understands what he can do and what's possible. And that's what was always giving him confidence to take the puck into the slot, to carry, to push defenders when he's on an attack, to make them feel uncomfortable. He's a player full of confidence, and he scored 100 points last year. I wrote about this a couple weeks ago. Like he's got a new stick. Like he is feeling so strong. He's like, I need a stiffer stick. I can put even more power into my shot. And that's he's not going to lay out a number, but that's a guy who's thinking, I want to score 50 goals. I think I can get 110 points. Like that's what he wants to be. And obviously it's a contract year. It's a big year for him. There's a lot at stake for him. Not only, does he want to win? Does he want to be in the playoffs? Does he want to probably win the Stanley Cup? Does he want to be considered one of the best centers in the league? He wants to get paid, So
Yeah,
and he's doing everything he can to make that happen, I think.
I'm just a bit curious. Like, this is not a criticism of the Sedins at all, because they were obviously exceptionally strong players, like deceptively strong. But certainly, I think the way opponents would approach the Sedins sometimes is trying to get under their skin, trying to take liberties, trying to get them off their game by intimidating them. And I think that can work with a lot of skill players around the league. But there's something about Pettersson that reminds me a little bit about Bure. And it's not just the flying elbow on Churla that he did that, if he did that today, he probably would have been suspended for the rest of the playoffs. But it was that edge to Bure, like, yeah, I'm fast. Yeah, I'm more skilled than you, but you are not going to intimidate me with, gritty tactics, let's say. This kind of side, as Pettersson gets stronger, do you see this forcing other teams to change the way they play against him? Because certainly trying to intimidate him and get him off his game is something that has been used in the past, but I don't see that working anymore.
It's an aggressive passion. The Sedins were so different in that regard. They were, self-confident. By their prime, they were very supremely confident in their abilities, right? But they were never a pump. And Pettersson isn't a pump his chest out kind of guy, but there is an orneriness to him that, yes, you're right. Bure is a great comparison because there was that desire to beat the other guy. The Sedins wanted to beat the other guy, but they were just going to overwhelm you. There was two of them. It was different. This is a 1v1 kind of thing. And the desire that Pettersson has shown since he's come into the league, and every year this notion has grown. I think that he is there. I mean, I said to him when I talked to him about the stick, like, the task is to beat the other guy. That's what he's here to do, and he knows he can do that by, in the end, scoring goals and setting up his teammates. And that pass to Connor Garland was so perfect, like just a perfect give and go. To open the scoring on Wednesday night. Like, that was just such a statement of a guy that thinks the game in a whole other dimension. That's both hard to play with because he's playing at such a pace and such a creative. It's also easy to play with, skate to the spot and put your stick on the ice.
The old BJ McDonald's.
Get it done. Yeah. Like, just, it's very simple. Like, in the end, let's do it and do it at pace. And that's there's an exact, sort of an exactness of performance that he expects from himself, and that, I think he thinks he can help his teammates get to. It's a like I said just now, like, it's a big year for him in so many ways and for so many reasons.
All right, Patrick, we'll leave it there. But as we do every time we do these videos, 3 games coming up on the road before we'll do our next video. Edmonton, Philadelphia and the Lightning. What are you expecting in the next week? How many wins out of those three, and what are you expecting to see from the team in those games?
Well, Edmonton obviously is a big task. The Oilers are going to be a big challenge. There's no way about it. And it's the Canucks need to be prepared like they were on Wednesday. They certainly hope they'll take a win. It's going to be, like I said, a big demand on their best players. They get some time, between then and Philly. They got to beat the Flyers. I mean, that's another rebuilding story there. The Canucks are in a very different spot. At least they believe they're in a very different spot. So to me, there's got to be win. I mean, Tampa is going to be hard. They're as sort of experienced and talented as it gets. They might be getting a bit older, but they're still one of the great teams in the league. You got to get one win out of those three games. You sort of say logically it should be Philly. If they can get 2 out of 3, I mean, they've already got one win on the season. They have 5 games on this road trip. If they can get a win and a tie, 1-3-1, you come home, you're 2-3-1. Like, I think you're feeling okay, but you'd like to get two wins on this road trip. At least one of those has to come in the next 3 games here.
Yeah, Philly's an interesting scenario, actually, when you look at that market. How you had the Sixers, while disappointing, but still went deep in the playoffs. You got the Phillies, who, World Series last year, look on track for that again.
Yeah.
Eagles just fell short in the Super Bowl. I mean, the Flyers got to get going. So, but you're right, they're probably the easy marks. I got to say, honestly, I feel so happy for Canuck fans in all this. You look at Connor Garland puts in a trade request, but he scores last night.
Yeah.
Then, that the Brock Boeser storyline overwhelms them. Then you've got Thatcher Demko, playing through a flu. You've got McDavid whining after the game. Like, there's just so many great, happy storylines for Canuck fans. And after everything that they've suffered through in these past few years, it's nice to see. So let's hope they can keep that going. Want to thank Paragon Roofing once again, paragonroofingbc.ca for your residential, commercial, roof installation, roof replacement. They're your place to go, and we thank them for their sponsorship. Patrick, enjoy your week. People, please leave comments that you would like Patrick to answer. Again, we're going to push this weekly mailbag. He wants what you want to know. He's going to be your answer man to find that. So have a great week, everyone, and we will talk to you next week.